I hand it over to Leora and our amazing 2023-24 fellows.
Yeah, thank you, Ori. Hi, everyone, community. Welcome into the middle of our day one. It is so good to be with everyone. It's been such a joy to be a learner and a participant so far today. And what a gorgeous question that Shirley just ended us on. She left us with, what does it feel like in your being right now? Which is a lovely segue into the conversation that I get to hold with Christine and Roberta and Camden, who are three of our 2023 to 2024 fellows, school crisis leadership fellows. And many of you know that in our fourth year of our Little But Mighty project, we started a leadership fellowship. And I'm going to invite Nikki to drop the link into the chat that you can learn more about our fellowship. And it's a space that folks across the country from different entry points of school crisis, of leadership, educators, school psychologists, school counselors, crisis responders, all get to be learners together and most importantly, unlearners together. And we get to be together for 8 months and hold each other, witness each other, and support both what we need individually and also what we need collectively to renew. We've invited 3 of our fellows from last year to join us. You'll get to meet them in a moment. I do want to invite any of our current newest fellows and or past fellows to say hi in the chat and share, do a wave, say hello, I'm here, so that folks in the room can feel the vibrance of our leadership fellows and that you can tap them if you want to learn more about it. So we're hoping to do in this time together is hold a not as long as I would love to be, because I want to be in conversation with these 3 humans all the time, but just enough, the just enoughs of being in conversation around what is this actually and might this look like as we hold the tragic gaps, or as we hold the practice of rest, or as we hold the essential question that Oriana opened us with today. So in a way to introduce Camden, Roberta, and Christine, which you'll hear from in a moment, I want to name that at the very beginning of our fellowship in year 1, we invited fellows to offer a 6-word story, and I'm so glad that I actually held up 6 fingers because I was worried that wasn't going to happen, but I did it. A 6-word story that tells the story of their experience of renewal. So we want to begin today, as Camden and Christine and Roberta get to settle in, we want to begin today with inviting you in the chat to offer your 6-word story. And Camden and Christine and Roberta, welcome you to offer another round. Maybe you're experiencing renewal in a different way. But what might be your 6-word story as you start to think about your experience with renewal? It might even just be today or in this moment. So I'm hoping to get to see some of them in the chat. I'll read Roberta, Camden, and Christine's out loud from last year's. Roberta was Sister Love Song, Letting Go to Heal. Beautiful. Camden offered Gave Permission to Finally Be Me. And Christine, Armor, Gift and Curse, Hopeful Courage. Yeah. So as you're putting your 6-word story in the chat, I'm going to invite Nikki to drop the original link to our leadership fellowship. I think I'm getting some pings that link doesn't work. That was dropped earlier. So let's get some 6-word stories. Yeah. Ooh, chose me and never looking back. Huh. Yes. Love. Yeah, punctuation does not count as a word, so you get to use all the punctuations you want. I am a work in progress. Finding myself in community healing. Thank you. Diasporic healing through community love building. That's so gorgeous. Thank you. Let's get a couple more. So we're inviting you in chat to share what your 6-word story of your renewal, your individual renewal might be like in this moment. fighter for myself and my community. Yeah, you might see someone else's 6-word story and want to co-sign it, be their co-author. Art about it today and always. Yes. Yeah. Lovely. Okay, let's get a couple more. Moving through fear to internal unity. See the future and be the future. Yeah, that feels like a nice tagline for living in the tragic gap that Alex opened us with today. Learning, building, reflecting, and wanting more. I know that you do. I know who you are. I know that you do. Giving and caring while setting boundaries. Okay, that is a whole teaching in itself. Okay, keep them coming, these 6-word stories. I'm gonna share that we've got a couple questions that I'm gonna be inviting Camden and Roberta and Christine into, but we're actually gonna take down the slides right now, and Nikki will drop some of these questions in chat so that you can follow along with them. And know that we most likely will not get to all the questions, and you might have more. So please feel free to drop your own questions in chat too, and hopefully I'll pick out some of them and hand them to Camden and Christine and Roberta. So hi y'all, gorgeous humans. So happy to be with you. Let's start with a quick, who are you and what brings you to this conversation? And I'm going to go alphabetical. Let's go Camden, Christine, and then Roberta. Who are you and what brings you to this conversation?
All right. Well, good morning. Thank you, Leora. And so excited to see all of you. Like, there's a lot of folks here. It's pretty phenomenal. So my name is Camden Webb. I'm the Clinical Services Director with Solano County Office of Education. I'm also a private practice, licensed marriage and family therapist, dad of 3, a partner, friend, human. And what brings me to this conversation today, well, certainly is an invitation from Leora. Thank you for always being a phenomenal mentor and challenging me to step into space and share my truth with others, which is becoming easier the more I know Leora. And thank you also, Christine and Roberta, for being partners with me this past year in the fellowship and joining me in conversation as well. And so I would say really what brings me to the conversation, and you'll hear as we're talking, I think all of us being a part of the fellowship last year, really being impacted, not recognizing, I knew I was signing up for something exciting and intriguing. I didn't realize that I was signing up for something life-changing. That was a vehicle I didn't even know that I needed in my life at the start of last year. And so I'm here to talk a little bit about that journey, what that healing and grieving and renewal looked like in the lens of my personal, professional, and the fellowship. Thank you.
Camden, Christine, going up to Oregon.
Hi, everyone. I apologize. I am out of town doing this, and there, of course, happens to be a lot of landscaping going on during this time. So if you can hear it, sorry. I'm Christine Ewing. I use she, her pronouns. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist in a group private practice in Bend, Oregon, as well as a school counselor at what I think is the greatest high school in Central Oregon, Bend Senior High. And then I have the honor and privilege of serving as a crisis response consultant and trainer in my region and across the state. And I would say, Camden said it beautifully, aside from getting to see a walking, living, breathing testimony from the SCRR mentors, leads, and fellows of what it means to be okay being human, and to just be a human instead of a doer, which has really resonated with me. And I'll tell you that when I first signed up for this fellowship, I thought, I'm just going to learn all the things professionally. And I was not expecting to be broken in such a beautiful, unfolding way, that it impacted me personally, which then leaned into my professional growth. And it has been one of the most life-changing experiences of my life. And so I'm super excited to see how my ability to just be a human, even in my brokenness and that brokenheartedness that Alex was talking about, unfold in this upcoming year.
Thanks, Christine. We can't hear anything except your beautiful words, so we're good. All right, Roberta.
Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Roberta Chávez. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a parent at Golden Bridges School, where I've also formerly been a school leader as faculty chair and formerly been a fifth grade teacher. And I'm currently executive director of our school farm, Hawk Creek Farm, and educational urban farm in the heart of San Francisco. And I'm currently in South Carolina, and a tornado passed us last evening. So it feels miraculous to be here right now as the storm continues to carry on behind me. And really, aside from Leora's invitation, the question itself is really the reason I'm here, especially the question, how can I renew myself as an educator? I'm holding that deeply right now with you, Christine, and with you, Alex. I came here 2 years ago to the Summer Institute with a very broken heart and returned to this place in the fullness of that broken heart and all that it means. So thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about our collective broken hearts and those moments. I know that sometimes we get feedback at SCRR like, okay, y'all, like that sounds really beautiful and powerful, but like, what does that actually, what does it mean? And what does it really feel like in my school work or in my life work? And so I want to invite all three of you to share a story, a moment, a shift moment, either when you were like, click, renewal, happening, feeling, accessing, or like no renewal, not happening, not accessing, and welcome that to be either in the fellowship or in your day-to-day, and open it to whoever would like to start.
Should we rock, paper, scissors?
No, we're just gonna go with you.
We're just gonna do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Since I unmuted, I will go. I will say for me, right, I feel this balancing act of hearing all of the things that we learn and then actually applying it to life with permission to actually apply it. So for me, the big shift was I have lived my entire life as a proud Lebanese Egyptian American, growing up in a very absolute world of you have it all together. You have to be available and ready for everyone. You cannot have feelings. You cannot share grief. You just have to know how to be available. Not only was I taught that personally in my culture, but then professionally in my program. And so my 6-word story of that armor piece of being a gift was that it did protect me growing up, right? Because it got me to where I needed to be. And the curse was that it kept me from getting to be a human and getting to be in a lived experience with a person right next to me or in my own experience. And so for me, what I realized was, we're so good in our culture at asking people how they're doing. And then we're so quick to already kind of know their answer. Fine, okay, tired, right? Those are kind of the main ones that we hear. And that was what I would do all the time. And it wasn't until I started to realize when I was asking someone how they were doing, I wasn't actually stopping to hear how they were really doing, because I wasn't checking in with how I was really doing. And so that actually kind of became the shift for my capstone and my focus, which was, how are you doing? But how are you really doing? And when you realize how you are actually feeling, what do you need from people, from yourself? All of those 7 types of rest, didn't even know those existed growing up. And so the ability to say, this is what I need, and be an example of that, not to teach it, but just to be a walking testimony of that, was where my renewal started to shift. And so That is my question whenever I ask someone how they're doing. My follow-up is, but how are you really doing? And in order to do it for someone else, I actually have to answer it for myself first. So that was my moment of renewal for me.
I appreciate that. The moments where we have inflection points of, oh, the strategies that have kept me alive also are deeply unaliving me at the same time, and the both anding of that experience and holding the gray of being in between. Yeah. Moments of shift, of renewal. Camden, Roberta. A story or an experience. This is the moment where we don't have to like fully wait for someone else. We just go because we actually don't have that much time. You know, Camden, let's go. What's the moment? What's the moment?
All right, I'll go first, Roberta. Well, Christine, thank you for going first. Gosh, so for me, kind of that moment of shift, I think just in, in general, I think I'm somebody who compartmentalizes, or that's kind of been my pattern throughout life is, here's my professional role, here's my personal role, here's my dad hat, and just kind of put on those different, just put those different structures in place. And I think what I really learned this past year was the integration, losing that decompartmentalization and recognizing I'm a whole self and all that comes together. So back in 2020, as a result of the pandemic, I finally, I emphasize finally because it took me 40 something years, came out as a trans man. And that was so important, but I think I did it in a very compartmentalized way that it was like, well, here's when my brother died, and here's my mom's Alzheimer's, and here's my trans manness. And what I really learned, and I would say through the fellowship and through, we call them SWIPs. I don't remember exactly what that stands for, witnessing partner, something. So one of my SWIPs, I credit her, Canada Taylor Parker, taught me about the gates of grief. And so I was becoming aware, and to speak a little bit, just briefly, so in my role as the clinical director, I oversee a team, one that operates a school-based mobile crisis. So we're responding on the daily to all of our school sites within the county when kids are suicidal or homicidal. And then I also oversee a team that supports communities that have experienced trauma and grief incidents, and we're stepping into a lot of sadness and pain. And so that was my day-to-day work, but again, I was very compartmentalized. And so as I'm in conversation, regular conversation about grief, I go back east to visit my family. My mom does have pretty late stage Alzheimer's, doesn't recognize who I am. And so it's like going back home, and it's in the middle of Virginia, not the most open-minded place. So it's heavy and it feels like a cloak. And so I stepped into that. And I remember watching my dad, who's career military man, having these like micro bursts of sadness. He would just cry for like 2 minutes and then stop. And Googling old man microburst breakdown, like I'm trying to pathologize what the heck he's going through. At the same time, here I am leading these teams and participating in this fellowship on grief. So I was reading Megan Devine's It's Okay to Not Be Okay on the airplane in the middle of two big guys. And it hit me. Oh my God, I'm grieving, and I need to grieve in this integrated way. And so I think having that, and then coming back in my SWIP Canada, teaching me about the gates of grief, which says it isn't just about the loss of your mom. It's about the isms that you're experiencing. It's about the isms that your ancestors experienced. And I started piecing together, I'm sad that I'm all the way across the country and can't be there to help my dad and help my mom because I had to leave that part of the country to be safe and live as myself, and that I've lost that, and my marriage has struggled because of that, and my children don't know their grandparents the way I wish they could because of these broader systemic isms. And so that it was just the unpacking of, oh, I'm not just sad about my mom. I'm sad about the world. I'm sad about Next Benedict. I'm sad about the political structure. So sorry to take up a lot of space, but that was my yeah, that was my event, my kind of knowing that shifted.
No sorries. No sorry. And we want you to take as much space up as necessary. And Camden, what you named, what strikes me in what you shared is that the returning to someone who literally doesn't see you, or people who couldn't see you, invited you to see yourself in a new way, and then come back and invite others to see you with you in a radical way. It's so profound. Thank you. Roberta.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Camden. I keep thinking about which piece of my story I'd like to share. And one image just keeps coming up for me. I carved out this entire last year to tending to my grief. I lost my sister at the beginning of the pandemic, and helped my school navigate through COVID and through several other crises in the midst of the pandemic. And I came out of that just needing a whole year to heal. And I focused my capstone project on supporting teachers on making space for grief in their classrooms and in themselves. And I brought this to my school site, and I supported so many teachers and so many parents as we collectively grieved this last year through a real fracturing in our school community. And June 30th came, and the school year closed, and July 1st came, and all I felt was rage. And it was so intense that I wondered if I had actually spent the previous year doing my healing work. It felt like I was starting over again. And Leora, your invitation came exactly at that moment. And it helped me to remember that all of this is a process, that there isn't a destination, that just like the natural cycles of the plant world, of which I'm a part of supporting at the farm this whole past year, and the animal world and the human world, the living and the dying exist side by side. And Alex, that image is so helpful, I think, of that gap between the possibilities of what is present and what is possible in the future as being on one side, and actually the unknown being on the other side. Because I feel that deeply in this moment, and I have these past 3 years of what, in order to renew, I have to acknowledge that something has died. And that there are many layers of things that I'm letting go of, that I have lost, and that something new is being created from that fertile ground when I acknowledge it and tend to it. So yeah, that's my, and I think my parallel, my real life experience is that 3 times this summer, I found a fire at the farm, an unintended natural fire. And all 3 times I put out the fire, and all 3 times I wondered what would have happened if I had not found it. And each time the fire invited me to be present and pay attention. And I continue to think about that invitation of the fire, especially as wildfires continue to rage in Northern California. What are we being called and asked to notice and be aware and be present for? So that's, and again, just the question as being so much of the gift, more than the answers that our hearts are yearning for, but just a deep living with the question. So thank you for like the gift SCRR has given me is this way of being that if I don't remember any of the content 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, I'm going to remember this way of slowing down and breathing, of resting and being, that is this container that's being co-created here. So thank you.
Roberta, what you offer about rage and healing is such a powerful piece for us in the room to hold together, because oftentimes there's this misunderstanding in the self-care industrial complex, especially in education, that it means that we're joyful and happy and great and we're healed and we're golden and we do all kinds of beautiful things in the world. But actually, healing might mean that we are resourcing ourselves to embrace rage and live in it and then curate it so that we walk with it, right? I'm thinking about all the young people who walk out of schools, on streets, demanding, rageful. They've been violated, as Gabor Mate reminds us, that rage is a signal that we've been violated, and that is their call for healing. That's their call for healing justice. And how much we as adults have completely, as Camden, as you were starting us with, and Christine, you named, like we've learned to not access that rage. So potentially reclamation of rage might be our access to renewal, as you named, Roberta. I want to bring us to a space that all three of you, I heard all three of you name. So now the three of you have kind of, you've shifted, you've had shift moments. What is that like when you now are working in crisis work or in school leadership work? Like, how do you invite your colleagues into understanding you're going to move differently? Or what might you have to keep reminding yourselves in order to hold on to that shift? I'm curious how your leadership has shifted because of the shifts, and how many times can I say the word shift in a question? Many times. Yeah, Christine, Camden, Roberta.
We won't make Christine go first again. Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I think just last week, my staff started back. And so kind of doing the annual, inspirational kind of welcome back. Let's set the center stage for this year. And I think for me, this does feel very 2020-ish again. And ironically, I have COVID right now. I had it when I was giving it the presentation, and I'm like, oh, go figure. And so, but when I think back to 2020, I kind of feel like leaders were leaning into this toxic positivity, like, the world's shit. In California, it was literally on fire, and here we were trying to, let's go fight the good fight. And so I definitely felt this year like, no, we're going to lean into, it's not okay. It's not okay. We're not okay. Our clients aren't okay. We've got budget cuts. We know the teachers and mental health clinicians aren't okay. And so I showed a video, and I can drop it into the chat. If you watch America's Got Talent, there was a singer, Nightbird, a few years ago, and she got the golden buzzer with a song called "It's Okay," which is really about it's okay to not be okay. And so that's where I'm leading my staff is let's hold that. Let's hold that collectively. And just be real with one another. Let's just lean into authenticity with ourselves and whatever emotion we're bringing to the space, and relationally lean in with one another, and not impose any judgment, and know that it may be messy today. You may feel majestic tomorrow, and that's beautiful, and that's okay. And so I think, again, as a leader, just more that integrated approach of showing up with our whole selves in partnership with one another, is how I'm trying to lead more as a leader.
Which also means, especially as a crisis response director, right, to invite your team to hold majestically messy responses also then might really bring up a lot of confusion for people who are looking to you for clear answers, as Roberta was naming, right? And so we also have to, as when we're making these shift moments, we have to ready ourselves with also bringing not only our own embrace, but also inviting other people to know that there's going to be a grief moment for letting go of how to versus how might, right? That's hard. Yeah. Thanks, Christine. And thank you, Camden. Going to Christine and Roberta.
Camden, beautifully said. And I would say, just to add to that, for me, I was laughing when Leora was asking this question, because I had a very distinct moment happen in April and May of this year. We had responded to a crisis in our school, and we went a whole week where, you know, I was doing the things, right, as a human, and then stopped on a Friday and went into my admin office and collected them all together. And I was like, I'm really mad. And they all kind of looked at me like, oh, okay. And I was like, nope, you all need to hear why I'm mad. I said, I'm mad because not a single person slowed down enough to check in with anybody else other than crossing off the boxes of the crisis response and what we needed to do. And it felt really violating to not be asked as a human if I was okay or how I was doing. And I said, I know that's hard to hear, because for the last 7 years, I've been okay, right? I've looked okay, and I'm not okay. I'm angry at this broken system. I'm angry that because people assume that I know how to do my job, that I don't need support. And I'm also like hopeful, because I had this amazing fellowship that I got to do, where I do have the courage to stand in a room with all of my admin, taking a risk to say, I'm freaking mad. I didn't use the word freaking because I like to cuss a lot. So it was a little bit more aggressive than that, but I was here for it, right? Like, I'm angry and I want to be seen. And that was, I think, my moment of, excuse my language, holy shit, like I can be a raging, courageous human that can still lead, even in my own grief, and even in my own journey of saying, like, I'm not okay with what's happening. And I believe that even with my broken heart, right? Again, to that quote that Alex shared with us about Parker Palmer, that I can still find the joy in the grief, and there's healing in that grief. But I have to be able to integrate them both together, and you have to see me as a leader that can hold both together. So that is my goal. That is my process journey for this next year, is to be okay saying I can be angry and grieving and also be courageous and hopeful together.
And also, how incredible for the communities that are getting crisis response from your team to then get permission for them to access the validation of rage, right? Like, I just think about the amount of, and Camden, we've talked about this, Roberta, too, the amount of our families who are losing their children to homophobia, to transphobia, to anti-Arab racism, to classes, like the amount of death, right, to gun violence. And then we show up and we are professional versus co-ragers. Like, wow, what, oh, it's just like, whew, you know, like what an invitation for us, as Oriana opened us this morning, to like completely re-envision what crisis response can really feel like and be for a community. Okay, Roberta.
Thank you. Christine, I want to build off something you said, and thank you for sharing it. I want to be seen. So much of what I noticed in myself as a school leader and what I see in my colleagues and fellow parents, especially this past year, is I noticed the adults needed to be seen and needed to be heard and needed to be understood. And there was a real question living in our school about how do we do that in a space that's for students? How do we make space for the care that adults are asking for? And that, yeah, and I was invited by a friend to go see an exhibit at the De Young Museum by the artist Li Mingwei called Rituals of Care. And I've really used this my experience, my embodied experience of this exhibit as something to carry what my school leadership looks like. The first room that I entered was an invitation to write a letter that you've never written. And I sat down immediately and I wrote a letter I've been writing in my head for the past 3 years. And I put it in the mail and I sent it that day. And just this huge weight was lifted off me when I did that. And then I was just reminded, oh, and it was a love letter. It was an apology. Like, oh, I can say the things I need to say, and I can write letters of love and care that both I wish I could receive and that I know are going to mean something when someone else receives them. And then the next room was a mending room where you bring an article of clothing and someone repairs it for you. And so much of what happened in my school community last year was we lost the fabric of trust and belonging in our community. And so I've been very intentional about mending relationships. Alex, your book is supporting me so much in thinking about that. And using this image of mending to return to the relationships where I feel most supported and seen, but also to give attention to those that need care. I've had 3 go to the source conversations this summer with people who all initiated by me, with people I wasn't sure if our relationship was okay. And the third room of the exhibit was a painting about peace, Peaceable Kingdom, in which the artist invited, I believe it was 14 friends to replicate the painting, but present their own vision of peace, and then invite those friends to invite other friends to replicate peace, and then invite those friends to invite other friends. So it's like a game of telephone in painting form. And I'm living with that right now. What does peace look like for me? What does it look like for you? How can I replicate that? How can you replicate that? And how together can we create this conversation about peace in our school community and beyond? Because I know I need it. I know you need it too. So these are some ways that I'm thinking about renewal in my role as a school leader this year.
So we're moving into our close. Roberta, we have a question from Hope, what a go to the source conversation is. And I can share and welcome you in chat to also say that a go to the source is a working agreement practice that instead of, if Christine is pissed with me and I hear it through Roberta, then I have conversations with Roberta and I make up stories about what Christine is feeling and I'm feeling, rather than just going to the source and saying, Christine, I heard that you're holding some anger with me. Can we clear it? Can we hold it? And it's a really hard and wonderful practice. So wanting to invite you to share more in chat if you want more. What you also named brought up the recall back from Summer Institute 2023 from Dulce's beautiful art-based therapeutic practice, the love journal that she had us engage in last year, y'all. So check out the recordings from last year. Writing a love journal. I'm just thinking about your letter writing, Roberta, as a practice for this coming year. Thank you, Nikki, for dropping it into the chat. I want to close us with an invitation for the 3 of you to kind of do a rapid speed round of what's your vision for renewal and sustaining yourself for this coming year. And Roberta, you already kind of tapped into it, like I'm gonna have a go to the source year. And I'm curious if we can do kind of one phrase or one commitment that the 3 of you are holding in your vision for renewal for yourselves this coming year. And I'm going to start with Camden, Christine, and then Roberta.
Lightning round. Yeah, I mean, I think I really spoke to it just prior, just leaning into authenticity and whole self. And I really like that go to the source conversation. I think leaning into courageous conversations. Um, we used to call them difficult conversations at our agency, but now we've really kind of shifted to it's courageous and it's going to grow us as a department. So yeah, that would be my messaging with Renewal, just showing up as your whole self.
Here for it. Christine?
So my like motto quote for this year is that grief and joy can coexist. And that in my ability to be an example of both of those, that I'm actually still being a leader. Because if I can be patient and acknowledge that I can be angry and hopeful all at the same time, it's like a new term. You're realistically hopeful. And that in and of itself can be a model of what someone else might need. And it's all in their boundary of what feels comfortable for them, right? So it's not about me testifying, this is how you grieve and this is what you do. It's just, this is who I am and how I'm showing up today as a human. And I hope that my experience gives you courage to tap into what you need. And I'm here if you need a thought partner. So that's my hope.
Beautiful. Thank you. Roberta, anything else aside from go to the source here?
Oh, I did a training this summer, and one of the facilitators, Jackie Sashida, she said, "Don't miss your blessing," and I am holding on to that all year. Yeah, don't miss your blessing, and I offer that to all of you too.
Thank you. Thank you for your rage. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your grief. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for your fires. Thank you for offering learning in public, as Adrienne Marie Brown says. It's incredibly vulnerable to do what you just all offered and to be who you all offered. So I want to really invite folks who've been listening to share in chat descriptive praise appreciation for Camden, Christine, and Roberta, how this conversation has shifted you or reminded you, right? Sometimes renewal doesn't mean becoming something different. It might mean becoming something authentic and back to your original sense of self. On behalf of our team and our community, Camden, Christine, and Roberta, thank you. Thank you.